So before I get into the actual questions for today, I just wanted to ask one very first one, which is why the Aligned Council of Australia essentially brought Gerard Rennick and Craig Kelly together. For the first time, probably forever, we're seeing a situation where the Freedom Parties are running a test in New South Wales. It's a coalition ticket between the Libertarian Party with Craig Kelly as the lead candidate, Michael O'Neill from the Heart Party, formerly the Informed Medical Options Party, and Gerard Rennick's party in New South Wales. Rather than running a separate ticket for the upper house, they're running one ticket. So it's 100% efficient with regards to preference flows, which is awesome. This level of collaboration is something that needs to happen in all states. So to kick us off, I wanted to ask Gerard Rennick to start with, how did this come together and what was the motivation behind this?
Thanks, Joel. Well, I had a guy who contacted me, Stuart Howe, I think his name was, and he's running out in Western New South Wales, and he put the idea into my head initially with the idea that we should run it. Yeah, the minor parties need to be running joint tickets, similar to what the Liberal National Party does in the Senate in New South Wales and Victoria. And when he explained it to me, it made a lot of sense, because if you're all in the same column, you then don't leak preferences, and that's one of the biggest problems the Freedom Parties have, is that, you know, combined they'll get over 10% of the vote in each state, but the preferences go every which way from Sunday, and then ultimately you end up with 2 or 3% leakage, and then often that person will end up, say, getting 7% instead of 10 or 11%. And that difference will be the difference between getting the 6th quota for the Senate and the 7th quota. So that when he explained it to me, that made a lot of sense. So there was that. There was also the idea that I do agree we need to come together. And, you know, while I also respect the fact that there's some good minor parties out there that've got some very good branding, and it's a big step for them just to give up their branding. The Alliance would allow people to keep their branding, but also, work together in a manner that could benefit them. So not every minor party is going to win. And I think some minor parties definitely have strength in certain states and weaknesses in other, or not necessarily weaknesses, but, they're just not going to run hard in other states. And Craig Kelly was a perfect example of that in New South Wales, in my view, with the Libertarians. But Craig's already got a lot of brand recognition as it is. And I wanted to back Craig because I can well remember my first TV interview as a senator was on Sky News one Tuesday afternoon on the 11th of November 2019, where I was asked about the Bureau of Meteorology and their homogenisation, and I was pretty much ridiculed by Tom Connell and Murray Watt for calling out the Bureau. And ultimately I was proven right, but I was a bit of a greenhorn, caught off guard. But when I walked out of the interview, I got a call from an unknown number. And I answered it, and it was Craig Kelly, and he'd seen the interview, and he'd said to me, "You're on the right track, Gerard, keep going." And most colleagues don't really want to know you when you go out on a limb on some of these issues, but Craig always backed me in, right from the start, even when he didn't know me, like when I was a greenhorn. And I always respected and appreciated him for that. Now, secondly, Craig went out hard early against the vaccines. He stood up a number of times in the party room, and took a stand. Unfortunately, the Liberal Party didn't stand by him, and I thought Craig was unfairly maligned by both the media. I mean, some of the treatment he copped from the media was just outrageous. It was sad to see him go, because he's very intelligent, Craig. He's also a very funny guy. And so I was more than happy to back Craig from a personal point of view as well. In New South Wales, I didn't feel comfortable running against him. So I thought that would be a good starting point to, work on the alliance, so to speak. So I guess, and the other thing, and this is important to know, we desperately need funding in the minor parties. If we can get 4% of the vote, we can get funding like the major parties get funding. And, that money can then be put in the bank account for 3 years, and it gives us a starting platform for the next campaign. Because if we want to do well in the minor parties, not only do we need to lift our game in terms of the way we conduct ourselves and that is we have to be more professional, we have to be more polished, we have to be more patient, and present data in a more polished manner. But we also need more funding, and I don't want to rely on Clive Palmer for funding because that always comes with too many strings. And we need effectively, but we need that funding to get advertising out into the mainstream, because the mainstream media will ignore the minor parties unless it's a pile-on where someone in the minor parties has an argument. So, last year there was a bingo late last year where Lydia Thorpe and Pauline and Fatima Payman had a big blow-up on the last day in the Senate last year, and they got lots of media attention. Well, that's not the sort of media attention we need to be getting. We need to be getting attention where we're talking about providing solutions to the many problems hard-working Australians face. So that's where we need, and that's where so I guess, if we can work together as a cohesive unit, get better funding, be more polished, I think we can grow that vote. And that's one of the reasons why I sort of want to hang around and fight the fight, because I'd like to see us from going to between 8 to 12% to 18 to 22%, at least double that vote, so we can lock in a quota from every state at every election and get the balance of power when the coalition in government, and then eventually challenge them in lower house seats.
Absolutely. Look, thank you for summarising that and giving obviously a lot more background to Craig. That was a very glowing review. Craig, you should write that down and put it in your resume, cover to your book or something.